Crescent pack for generations. It had passed down through her family without a single challenge to their leadership because they were strong, fierce, but fair. Her siblings had all inherited the alpha power that came with being DeLuca wolves, but she hadn't. Luna had been born a beta, a follower instead of a leader. And worse, her wolf wasn't just weaker than her siblings. A worker instead of a fighter, her wolf was also submissive. She was an anomaly. A wolf with royal blood but no alpha power to reign. She was a princess in name only. A DeLuca that would never rule and never lead. She'd come to terms with that. She'd learned to deal with the hand that fate had dealt her. So she wasn't the strongest wolf in the pack. She compensated for it in every other way. She'd trained beside her twin brother Leo since they were kids. She'd worked out with the pack enforcers to stay strong, flexible, and alert. She'd enrolled in continuing education courses after high school, taking business classes on leadership so she could advise her father and brother when the time came. She'd learned to work with what fate had given her, and she'd been content, happy even, with the life she had made for herself. Only a few months ago, everything she thought she knew about her future had changed. Her youngest sister, Nova, had announced that Luna would be a leader. Not in the Crescent pack, but in another. Nova was a seer, gifted with visions of the future, and she'd predicted that Luna would cross paths with her mate soon. Not a Crescent male, but an alpha nonetheless. She'd said Luna would help him lead his own pack, and that they would be happy because it was a good match fate had given them. Nova had been sure that Luna would get her happily ever after with her very own Prince Charming, so much so that she'd told anyone who would listen about her prediction. Luna had laughed it off. It was an absurd daydream of a little girl that wanted the best for her big sister. That was all. Luna couldn't be the fated mate of an alpha. She was submissive, and a pack alpha needed a strong female at his side to help lead. Luna hadn't taken the vision seriously for so much as a minute before dismissing it completely. But Maddox had. The handsome, charming wolf that had set his sights on her and spent ages trying to woo her to his side had lost his damn mind when he heard she was fated to another. It hadn't mattered that they both knew she wasn't fated to him all along. They were both of age, and the bond had never flickered between them, not once. It was why she'd turned down his advances again and again. His persistence had at first been flattering, then annoying, and finally, as his mask of kindness and charm had fallen away, terrifying. Maddox wanted her, and he'd made it clear he would do whatever he had to in order to keep her, willingly or not. It hadn't occurred to her, at least not at first, that he was plotting more than just their mating. It should have. She wasn't exactly a catch, royal DeLuca blood or no, being a submissive wolf, but that had never seemed to bother Maddox, and it had taken her far too long to realize why. He hadn't wanted her despite her submissive wolf. He'd wanted her because of it. He'd thought she would be an easy target. A submissive wolf he could easily sway with his alpha power. She was supposed to have been his way in with the DeLuca family. God only knew what he'd planned for her and her family if she'd agreed to mate with him then. But she'd spent a lot of time thinking about how sneaky and stealthily he could have wormed his way in and hurt her father and brother after he threw her in a basement, handcuffed her to a wall with silver, and set about destroying everyone and everything she loved. Nova's vision had changed everything. Maddox had known she wouldn't agree to mate him, and he'd given up any and all plans to go about his coup under the radar. Instead, he'd murdered her father in cold blood. Sure, he'd made it appear legal because of the challenge he'd issued to the reigning pack alpha, but everyone knew her father had been ill. No self-respecting wolf challenged a pack alpha when he was weak, but Maddox had, and he'd won. He'd broken her father's neck. He'd killed him while she screamed and cried and clawed to get free. When the pack gathered around the fire to watch the challenge had begun to rumble about the way Maddox had seized power, he hadn't hesitated. He'd ordered his allies to detain every one of her siblings and imprison anyone that spoke out against him.